There we go, recording. And so yeah, we're recording now. Yeah, so the channel called Chris is the one that's recording, because I am, the way this works, if I was running audio through the group one, the camera looks like it's super behind. It's not in the audio. It's just going through all the internets and coming back. And so that one is the most correct one, and that's the one I'm running audio through. And so yeah, so, but it's good to have everyone here, even though there's no one online. Like, I don't know, what did you guys say to scare everyone away? We could talk about that. Let's see, is this a better background? No, it's not. And so but it's good seeing everyone here. So where did we make it last week?
6, so we were back.
Did we make it all the way to 6? Did we talk about all this stuff? Because I feel like we kind of started rushing it. But that being said, I have yet another video for us to watch. I know. It's the Bible Project has been producing videos on exactly where we are like crazy lately, because their podcast is going through all of this, which is great for me preaching all this next year. So they have one of their videos kind of talking about the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount again, and I think it's helpful. It's like 5 minutes, and I think we will watch it here. So I got to hit my button, and then hit this button, and then hit this button, and we go.
Just pushing buttons.
Here we go. We're just pushing buttons, and so we hit this and this.
2,000 years ago, on the eastern side of the Mediterranean Sea, a teacher named Jesus of Nazareth went up onto a hillside and addressed a large crowd.
It was a crowd of nobodies. Poor and sick people, their land occupied by the Roman Empire, who charged heavy taxes. This is a ragtag group.
And while they don't look like much, Jesus claimed that something surprising was starting with them.
So he opened his mouth and said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of the skies." The kingdom of the skies? What does that mean?
Well, Jesus uses this phrase to talk about a new kind of reality. From our perspective, we see a world of violence and corruption where might makes right. But for Jesus, there is a realm where generosity reigns, where there's justice and peace. It's a world where love is the final word.
And that reality might as well be up in the skies. It's beyond us.
Exactly. It's God's heavenly reality, which might seem far off. But Jesus was claiming that heaven was coming to earth right here and now, beginning with these people.
That's unexpected.
And so is what he says next.
Blessed are those who grieve, for they will be comforted.
So this group that's at the bottom of society, they know all about loss and grief. But Jesus said something's coming that's going to turn sorrow into joy.
And then he said, blessed are the unimportant, for they will inherit the land.
And these people are not powerful or important, but just wait, Jesus says, because one day it will be you all who are ruling the world.
You know, it kind of sounds like Jesus is trying to start a revolution.
Well, kind of, but it's not a revolution for those who are hungry for power or influence. This is a movement of people who are going to serve because they long for healthy relationships between people and communities and nations.
Yeah, as Jesus puts it next, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy.
Just imagine it. A group of powerless nobodies ruling the world through generosity and forgiveness and justice. This is a Jesus-style revolution.
The next thing Jesus says is, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. And this one really raises the bar. To be part of this revolution, my heart needs to be so pure I could look directly at God.
Well, Jesus knows that all of our choices, even our good ones, are often driven by mixed motives. For Jesus, real peace is only possible through people who know that they need to be transformed if they're going to truly love God and others.
And this sounds wonderful, but it's a radical calling.
That's exactly right. In fact, Jesus goes on to explore just how radical it is.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
So God's new reality won't just happen by itself. It requires people who are willing to enter into the conflicts of others, urging and helping create a way towards peace.
But that way of life can be dangerous. And so Jesus says, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of the skies.
Yeah, entering into conflicts and advocating for peace, that's not a comfortable way to live. And so Jesus calls people to this peacemaking revolution, and he names the high cost.
Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in the skies is great, for they persecuted the prophets who were before you in the same way. What does that mean, the prophets before you?
Well, Jesus and this whole crowd are Israelites. And in their Hebrew scriptures, God promised that it would be through Israel that his kingdom would be restored over all the world.
But as the story goes, Israel becomes as corrupt and violent as everyone else, and they end up enslaved to oppressive nations.
But Israel's prophets stood up to these kingdoms and criticized their corruption. They said that one day God's heavenly kingdom would break in, starting with a small group of Israelites who would be willing to surrender everything over to God.
So Jesus wants this crowd to see that they're part of that legacy.
Yes, and that's why Jesus concludes this first block of teaching with 3 images from their scriptures.
The first is, you are the salt of the land.
Salt is a mineral that preserves food for a long time. And in the Bible, salt is used as a symbol of God's long-lasting covenant with Israel. Jesus is saying that he and this ragtag group are the launch party of God's long-lasting ancient promises to renew the world.
And then Jesus says, you are the light of the world, and a city on a hill cannot be hidden.
He's referring to the biblical image of God's light, his presence shining out from its dwelling place in the temple in Jerusalem, which was a city on a hill.
But these people, they aren't the rulers. I mean, they don't even live in Jerusalem.
And yet, surprise, Jesus says, you all are God's salt and city and light. You all are the blessed ones, the new Jerusalem that's going to display God's kingdom to all the world.
Okay. So, like, as I was watching that, it kind of reminded me of what we were kind of talking about last week as we're going through this. Because as we went through here, I got to get into Matthew in this Bible, and remember we were talking about it, and we're like, okay, I can kind of see it. I can see it. We talk about I'm looking at my headings, but murders in the heart and all that stuff, and we kind of understand that. But all of a sudden, we kind of get away from that when we start talking about marriage and all these other things, and remembering that feeling, that sense, that the same meter, the same harmony, the same scale, the same notes are being played in the Beatitudes, the blesseds, right? The blesseds. All over there, the same tonality is happening. The believers are salt and light. That we're not going to the crawfish boil which is bland crawfish and shrimp. It's got good seasoning to it. All that stuff. That same tonality is going through the rest of these. So as we talk about the marriage and all that stuff, that same tonality of that there are people who are expressing their strength and power over others, and that the kingdom of God is lifting up the humble and doing all those things. That's kind of what we see there as we're going forward. I don't know. Did anyone have any thoughts on the video and anything before we start reading today?
I got a comment.
Uh-oh.
Years ago, when I was here, You introduced a Bible project to me.
Yeah.
Just so you know, your seed was planted because I've used that in 5 different Bible studies, as well as on the radio and everything else. Because it's really good for those that are right brain oriented.
Yeah.
Because they're drawing.
Oh, it's
they can
great.
Visualize with it and everything else. But I never knew you could do this, which is a video from Project Bible until just now.
Yeah.
Can you download that onto a thumb drive and then put it on
You have to be able to, maybe, I don't, you have to download like YouTube videos. You
Because
can
I
do
could
that.
use that in my messages. But
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
For those who, does everyone remember Glenn? Yeah, like everyone, you're like, you guys don't, you're newer here. Glenn was coming here to church right before the pandemic, probably.
Yeah.
And then, Glenn started helping out with, Good Samaritan Ministries, which, primarily is a place for, people when they come out of prison. That's kind of how it all started, right? Out of prison, it's somewhere for them to land, and they have job opportunities, and they have all these little small businesses that are run and operated by these ex-convicts and all those things. And they do homeless stuff now, and like all kinds of things like that. And so he decided that we were wanting here at Grace, and so went over there to really help. And so that's where he ended up, and he came over to talk to me a few weeks back.
Yeah.
And so.
By the way, I have brochures for all that.
Oh yeah,
I talked to
you
about
brought the propaganda. I get
There's
it.
another
I
fact,
get it. I
the,
get it.
The introduction to Good Samaritan on the 24th. Ed and Joanne are coming, and so is Judy, Frederick. And her
Okay.
husband. They're all coming to that, and I was going to mention anybody who wanted to join me. I was sponsoring tables and so forth.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, that was good because also that led me into, I'm on the radio now. I'm
Yeah.
on the radio for 2 years on WCNO, and I have a weekly program on that.
Yeah.
But I'm here because I just came from another Bible study.
Yeah.
And you know why I go to that Bible study?
Why is that?
Because of here.
Yeah.
Because you were advertising
Yeah.
Perkins Bible Study, and I ended up going there and then netting with all these different people.
Mhm.
Plus, we had different pastors coming in, so it was a great opportunity for me. And I said, why not just come over here to that? So
Oh, yeah.
here I am.
That's good.
And I also like the idea of how you change this. You have a group table around the circle and
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
And interact with people. So I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're all good, man. You're all good. I appreciate it. Anytime anyone's praising me, I'm all about it.
Oh, okay.
Like that. Yeah. So, yeah. It's, I'm the most humble one here. It's all right.
Was this a setup?
Yeah.
No, actually, Chris, I really respect him. I mean, as far as pastors go, he's right on.
No, I appreciate that. Glenn was always super fun when he was here. So like we continue to wish you well in all the endeavors going forward with Good Samaritan. That's so someone's got to be there for those people. So that's good, and that's kind of like what we're talking about. Like, so I really liked how Tim Mackey put it in the Bible Project video. That it's like all these people who are down and out. All these, and it's like the kingdom of God is for you. Like that's when this is kind of connected to what we're talking about here. I hit this when we were doing the Mark sermon series a few years ago. I hit this hard too. When the powerful grab the scriptures, they distort it and use it as a means to keep thumb over people. But when you read, when all of a sudden you're able to get outside of that and read it, or for like what's written on the page, you're like, well, no, that's not it at all. Like it's this incredibly freeing thing, like this. The gospel is very, very freeing to the people that are around it and in it, and you can see that in what Jesus is talking about here. So and I'm trying to give us a rubric to how to read all of this, because our sinfulness will read these things and we can be thinking about like, that person needs a thumb on them. They're disobeying this. And I don't think that's how we're supposed to read this. And so, and it's like, okay, we're seeing this more of a liberation kind of idea going forward here. So, all right, let's read a little bit. So we got to decide where we're going to start reading, because we started off strong, but we kind of ended with a whimper in chapter 5. I don't want to get back into the things that got us slowed down last week, but should we begin with like chapter 5 verse 33 or 38, like that's, do you think that would be good?
Do it.
Let's do it.
Do it.
All right. So chapter 5 verse 33. Oh, here's Pam. Hi, Pam.
Hi, I finally figured out how to I couldn't get you on Zoom to begin with, so sorry, I'm a little late.
Oh, you're doing good. I'm just glad. Can you hear us okay?
What?
So I asked if you could hear us okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right, good. Good. It was you saying what was about perfect for that. But good deal. Like, it's good seeing you, Pam. I know this is a little different, but hopefully this raises the quality of it up. And so we'll be doing that. So we're about to start reading from Matthew chapter 5, beginning with verse 33.
Okay.
And so here we go. I gotta hit my buttons here. Your screen, and then web Bible, and share. Okay, here, let's see, 33. And I'm gonna mute you, Pam, real quick. Just unmute yourself if you want to talk.
Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your yes be yes, and your no, no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you not to resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, do not turn away. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward have you? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brethren only, what do you do more than others? Do not even the tax collectors do so? Therefore, you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect.
Okay, we'll talk about that now.
It's pretty hard to do.
Yeah. Well, it is. So that last little verse there it's interesting. So what stood out to you? What did you think was interesting? What did you hear in all this? Yeah, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, I
Say
remember-
something controversial.
I'll
Get
praise you,
people going.
because you gave a wonderful message. I don't know how many years ago it was, but it was on taking the name of the Lord in vain. And you showed on slides commercials that were given on TVs, and he showed how subtly they would put a church in there.
Oh yeah.
A guy like My Pillow guy.
Oh yeah.
All these different things. That's taking the name of the Lord.
Yeah.
in vain.
Yeah.
And that's what struck me when I was going through it. I remembered exactly what you had talked about. It was really impactful.
Yeah.
I
So
don't think of it in those terms.
no, you don't. You don't. And that's kind of those oaths, like the thing that he's talking about there. It's like, let your yes be yes, your no be no. And because think about what he's talking about. So if we have this dynamic of the powerful, and often the powerful are quick to promise and slow to deliver, right? And all that stuff. And he's like, don't feel like you're so important that your yes and yes, and your yes can't be a yes, and your no be a no be a no. Like that's like I like to weasel around constantly. And so like that's something that I always kind of hear in my thing. It's like, do I honor people enough to give them yeses and nos and all of that? So I don't know. What else kind of stood out to you?
I'm worried about people taking the context of tax collectors without understanding what the Bible's talking about.
Yeah. So the tax collector bit.
You gotta have them.
Well, you got to have him, but he's got this kind of wry funniness about tax collectors, right?
Of the day, yeah.
Who is attributed as the author of Matthew? Who is it? It's Matthew.
Yeah.
Matthew. What's Matthew? He's a tax collector. Like this, these things are like. So imagine Matthew then writing this thing, and he's writing it here. And writing like this, because this is like a playlist of the best hits of Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount. It's like all these like classic teachings of Jesus that it's Matthew, as we've been going through here, is establishing a baseline about who Jesus is, what makes him stand apart, showing all this good stuff. Like this is what we've seen going forward here. And we're getting this playlist of like the best hits of Jesus. So now as he's writing it, he's like, don't even the tax collectors do it? Yeah, he's probably chuckling to himself a little bit there. And so I'm getting a little bit of feedback on you, Pam. Can you mute yourself again?
Well, I'm trying to, now I can't hear very well, so I was trying to
Oh, really?
adjust the volume, but I have trouble hearing anyway, so.
So you're having problems hearing?
I can hear you, but not very well, but it
All
could
right, let me
just
see
be
if I can do
me.
something about that. Hold on. All right, is that better? Yeah?
I can get
So,
by with it.
Does it need to be louder? Is that better?
It's not much louder, but I can understand you. I had more trouble hearing the others.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's the others are always the issue. You have to talk like me when you're talking. You got to be loud, and so yeah. All right. And so I'm gonna try to just unmute yourself if you want to say anything, Pam.
Okay.
All right. So that's we're running through. We're doing quality control as we go through this today, trying to see if this new system works out. So okay. But yeah. So that like tax collectors thing, and what's he talking about in the midst of the tax collectors? Like he's talking about loving your enemies. Right? Like that's. And this is what's so fascinating. So like Matthew has this like wryly funny little thing at the end of it. It's like, don't even the tax collectors do that, right? And he's kind of talking about himself a little bit. Like it's this, I almost equate it to whenever I do the joke of like, I could be wrong about this, but I'm not. It's kind of a joke that's kind of saying something. And that these tax collectors are these great enemies, and yet, Jesus found himself around all these great enemies, and and at least one of them was called to be his disciples, and he's eating with all of this stuff. It's setting us up for all this stuff happening when the Pharisees are going, he eats with tax collectors and sinners. He's a terrible dude, You know?
Yeah. The NIV that I have here uses tax collector in 46, but later it uses the term pagans. Do not even the pagans do that.
Oh, yeah.
ESV says, do not even the Gentiles do that.
Oh, good. Yeah. There's all these subtleties to the language. Like that's, I wonder what's going on there. What verse is that again?
46 and 47.
Matthew 5, 40, 46. And I haven't used this on this one yet. Here, all right, so let me get it up on the screen for you guys. Let's see here. So present, share, and then this one.
Did you say Gentiles in your version?
Okay, so here. Oh, is it coming? There it
ESV,
is.
It says Gentiles.
So so we see so if you love those living, what reward do you have? Do not also the tax collectors do the same? So telonai, and then 47. Oh man, we might be running at the edge of this computer. All right, here we go. And then 47 is do not also the Gentile. So this the ethnic. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger and you guys can see it.
But it's not the same word.
No, it's Gentile.
Interesting. Because pagans and then Gentiles and then.
So,
Real interesting. What is the message we're giving to Gentiles here too?
so right there, it's this word right in the middle here, this you'd see it's basically ethnic.
Yeah.
And that's Gentiles. And that's how it's getting. So pagans works, it's saying the same thing. It's trying to, the pagans in it is trying to translate that out of a different, it's trying to get you to be repulsed, you English speakers, because Gentiles really don't do that for us anymore. So they're translating the feeling of so that's good. That's good. So what else kind of stood out to you?
He's not making specific, he's making specific comments, but he's not making specific comments. He's trying to give you an idea, such as when he says, if somebody's going to sue you, give him the tunic. He's not saying that. What he's saying is sit down with the person and work it out. So it doesn't have to get to the point where the party's taking you to court.
Yeah. So deal with it ahead of time is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. They're essences. He's trying to set a mood, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that have to be done, but it's not to be taken line for line.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, that's how people use it.
Yeah. Like I've heard a lot of stuff quoted from all of these, and they're usually not meant to bring life to people. They're meant to hold someone down, and so you're seeing this out there, and and it's cool that he's in verse 38. It's you've heard an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. He's quoting the Old Testament there. He's quoting, what is that, Deuteronomy, where that's in, or something like that. He's quoting that, but he's like, no, but I tell you, love your enemy. That is completely different, and it's holding the world around you with kind of an open grasp, and that's where everything that we know and we love and we understand is holding on to the world with trying to squeeze it like we're trying to squeeze juice out of a lemon, right? Like that, all of those things, and yet here he is going to hold it openly. Did you want to say something?
I'd like to ask Lee, are you suggesting that it's best that we read not literally but figuratively? Is that what we take from this?
No, I'm saying that his words are being used to create a mood or an essence or an idea of how to live. I have an argument with you. I take you to court. I would lose, but
You know well. There's wisdom.
Yeah, there's wisdom.
what it's saying is, don't let it get to that point. Sit down with the party you're disagreeing with, work out the disagreement. There's got to be a way to work it out. And you can if you take that attitude rather than, well, that's it, we're going to court.
So in all the Beatitudes, you see establishing a mood, whether it's going to court or oaths or divorce, it's the mood.
Yes, yes. Also, if, like he begins on 43 when he says, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. If you think back, everyone is your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's saying is, they said you have to love everybody. But what happened was we took it word for word. You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
They twisted it.
Yeah.
And that's what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, look at this. It's not the word for word law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, what they're doing, so he's pointing out that they've twisted this all up in knots. And that built that love your neighbor stuff is built off of this very subtle dig at Roman Empire and Roman power too, because it's like if anyone wants you to walk a mile, if anyone compels you to walk a mile, because that was the whole Roman army thing, that they could ask anyone to carry my stuff for a mile, that's over there. And he's like, just go ahead and do another 2. No, think about what he's asking there. He's asking, it's like, just don't fight it. Like that, just go for it. And he goes, and it's almost like you're almost fighting it more than it's that holding everything with an open hand to the world around you, even your enemies and your tax collectors and those dirty Gentiles. We hold them with open hands and we love them. It's a completely different way of viewing all this. Go ahead.
He's not saying, though, love your neighbor who's going to kill another neighbor and don't stop him. He's not saying that. He's not saying to us, go and be buddies with the Russians.
Well, I think he's establishing. So there's this distinction, and I was thinking about this last night, and what you just said there, I think actually brings it up. It's sometimes we want everything to be clean. We want nice, clean theology, clean politics, clean churches. The problem is that I know most of you in this room pretty well, and you guys are all dirty. You're so dirty.
You look at me.
It inspired it. And I'm dirty too. We try to get clean from all of this, but if we're trying to be clean, then we leave out what Glenn is doing. We leave those people out. And that's what I've noticed is that, in how we deal with politics, sometimes we want it so clean. It's like, we even have terms in our politics for this. Like the Republican one is rhino, Republican in name only. That means you're saying that as a diss to be clean so that you can exclude something that they're doing, right? And we do it in the church too. It's like, oh, well, that's not the correct way. I'm going to kick you out.
I'm not picking in it.
Yeah.
Are you,
go for it.
Perhaps, are you saying purity rather than clean?
Yeah, I'm saying purity.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that we strive for this purity. We strive for this, and we put that over and above everything else. And we end up worshiping that at the exclusion to us at the table, at the exclusion of ex-convicts or convicts or these dirty tax collectors and sinners, or those dirty, dirty Gentiles. And that's, and you see Jesus, and like all the people that are trying to keep pure or clean, the Pharisees are accusing Jesus of like, he's not being pure enough. He's hanging out with the wrong people. And when you see that, then you're just like, oh, like all of this may be a little messy, but there's a holiness and intention. There's a holiness and intention of that saint and sinner dichotomy. Yeah, go ahead. You want to say
Sure, I
something?
want to.
Oh, I want you to.
It seems like if you go back to the Old Testament, the Pharisees in particular, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin, they really went out and they defined all these laws in Leviticus and Deuteronomy that are, granted, most of them came from Moses or supposedly, but
Yeah.
they defined how you lived, and it was to the exclusion of those who didn't do it.
Mhm.
And so the whole, in a sense, the whole Old Testament was about excluding everybody but us. We were the chosen. We were this. And Jesus is now coming along and saying, no, you guys are okay, but these people are also good in a different way. They're good. And so to your issue of purity, they may not be doing these laws, but they still were God's people. They were created in his image. They are his children. In a sense. And he's saying, don't exclude them. Don't get hung up on whether or not they do this or do that.
So you're saying that the original 600 odd laws are the source of these
They
task
were
of purity?
designed to divide us, to
And
separate
as a
us,
result,
set us
people
aside.
pursuing purity rather than love.
Right.
So
That's a good way of putting it. They were sowing purity and not love.
okay, yeah, sowing purity and love there. And so then when we look at those laws, one of the things that kind of changed me and looking at the Old Testament laws and really teaching Luther's understanding of the Ten Commandments, which you can get in the large catechism if you want, this will drive the old way of looking at it all away from you. Is why were these written? Like a lot, like you have these really dogmatic laws about where someone's widow goes, and that one, what we know about how life functioned back then, those laws, and they seem like they're heartless. Like this widow now has to go live with her brother's cousin's, third neighbor down the street, all that stuff. And but when you look at it, it was somewhere for her to go. Whereas if there wasn't an established roadmap for her to go, she would have to work the streets, And so like that, in that date and time, the problem is that that becomes the roadmap no matter what. And it now becomes a thumb on that lady rather than a help, because that's like we'll talk, because Glenn's our new toy today, like that he's here. Like I'm sure Good Samaritan Ministry has a lot of rules about how the people live in the homes, all that stuff. And that's to make sure that stuff can exist a year from now, right? Like that.
You can't have cell phones, you can't have contact
Yeah.
with people for 30 days, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, like all those things. But like if we fast forward 100 years and cell phones don't even exist anymore, yet that's the rule. Like then you suddenly see the whole thing, the purpose behind these rules is to make sure that they can start this new life. Like that, like all this stuff. And I think that's kind of what Jesus is getting at. And he's also he's moving everyone forward too. Like that's also an understanding. He's moving us forward. It's like, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I say, let them slap you on the other cheek. Like the slapping on the other cheek, I really enjoy that one too. Because a lot of times when you slap someone in the cheek, it's a backhand thing. Well, if you give them the other cheek, they have to punch you like an equal. Like that's, You know, that kind of idea, you know, it's this like, and when you allow it to be thinking about the power dynamics, like it's interesting, you know? And so that's, we're going through all this super slow, but there's so much to unpack here.
One of the things you mentioned, and the verse tells you exactly that. It says to love your enemies. And love is used as either a verb or a noun. As a noun, it's agape, but as a verb, apokelo, is a command. It's in the imperative mood. You will love your enemies. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
In fact, if you could put an exclamation mark behind it, which is like hooray, he's saying love your enemies and, yell it out.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Look at it in the ground.
Yeah.
Writing it.
Like that's,
What other word could you use for love your neighbor instead of using the word love? What is it?
Filio or sturgy or.
But I mean, in English, like I would understand. I mean,
so filio is like, we use that word as Philadelphia. So which is like brotherly love, like you love familial relationships, all that stuff. And then you have, I'm really not good with all of them. What are they, Glenn?
It's sturgy is
Yeah.
a family love. Eros is erotic love.
Yeah.
And filio, brotherly love, and agape is godly love.
Yeah. Yeah. So like it's these.
Agape?
Agape is God's love. That's something until you become a Christian you can't have.
Yeah.
It's just impossible.
So like it's like this bigger love. Yeah. Lee or Jim.
So in Christianity, is there any room for self-defense?
Any room for self-defense?
Yes.
Like so.
Like if somebody slaps me,
Yeah.
I'm not going to turn my other cheek. I'm going to probably break his arm.
Yeah. Well, like, and so that turning the other cheek thing, that's what I liked about I heard a pastor once talk about that, like that it becomes a thing where you will treat me like an equal, like rather than a slap, like a backhand slap, it's like you will treat me like an equal. And I think that's kind of what it's about. And that's what I like about the tension. Like there's this tension in all of this because, and the whole thing is that as we continue to grow in the faith, we allow those tensions to release in other areas and they get bigger in others, as we continue to grow. That I don't know if there's always these times that are the most faithful and great but like if you want to have self-defense, I think that's all right now, but it's a tension.
Natural instinct.
Yeah.
It's hard to fight that.
But I'll say this about myself though, like when it comes, I think about myself, I would have a hard time, even if someone was hurting me, I think I'd have a hard time hurting them. Like that's, like I think that about myself right now. If I'm in this situation, things may change.
two wrongs don't
Prevent
make a
them.
right.
Like that's.
To prevent them from hurting you more.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of I haven't always been there, but I think I'm there now. I don't know. I haven't had that to be tested, but that's
James's point is apt, that
mhm.
there's a point where your life becomes fraught. If I'm not allowed to strike back and the guy's got a bat, he's going to take me out, or it's something that, at the risk of personalizing it, I start wondering, am I being a good Christian when I want to take care of this person who's taking care of me? And
Or if somebody's hurting somebody else too. Self-defense may not just be they're hurting you. It could be your wife or your kid or a friend. You don't just want to stand there
And that's and what I don't like is the hard and fast rule of like you can't do this, because then all of a sudden it feels like a thumb again on you, and
this becomes the thumb.
and it becomes the thumb, and it's not meant for that. And so like that's why I like the go an extra mile for them, like express the freedom of the kingdom of God to all these other people. Like that's, And I think that's kind of the way it is. And there's a tension to this all.
I had to laugh that you were, the lady at the end, she was talking about the idea of the tunic.
Yeah.
I had an experience with that because I was working with the homeless at Fort Pierce, going out into the woods where they had tent cities, and I had bags of food, bags of clothes, bags of shoes. And there was a guy there, and he said, I need a pair of shoes. And I looked, yeah, you need a pair of shoes for sure. And I looking through my bag, and I didn't find anything his size. And he said, well, what size are you? And I said, 13. He said, that's my size. Let me have your shoes. I did not give him my shoes. Okay, and it was funny because at first I thought, heck, man, this is really bad. He wants my shoes.
Yeah.
But then I thought about it, and I stopped. When I went home, I found old shoes that I had,
Yeah.
and I took them the next week.
Yeah.
But that's what you're talking about. Yeah, having a conversation, not that you're looking at scripture in terms of symbolically or
And
not
things.
literally.
That's why I was talking about. And that's why I was talking about like this tension. I started really thinking about it yesterday. And I was like, I think there's this holiness in the tension, because I think that tension is what we see with Jesus on the cross. We see this holy tension where holiness is meeting just the filthiness of the creation and all of its struggle and all that stuff. And you have Jesus even saying, why have you forsaken me, God? Yeah, like that. It's this holy tension, and we find that that's where Jesus is sitting at. And I'm like, oh man, that's because that tension. So it's not these hard and fast rules, but it's this holding in tension. It's like, so how do I continue to see the kingdom of God all around me and the image of God in all these people around me, even my enemies? How do I see that? Like that's do I give the homeless man my shoes? Do I get that's not a hard and fast. That's not a hard and fast rule.
Not give him his car.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't give him a car. It's a lease, and that won't go well, But that's kind of the way there.
You gave a message once, and it was really affected me, and it was about Jesus being upside down. When Jesus touched something that was unclean, it became clean. Okay, all the rules that you see in the Old Testament, when you touch something, you become unclean.
Oh yeah.
And that's the whole concept of the difference between Old and New Testament. And when we have Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're constantly getting clean, and that's good. That's good. Let's see it's 11:50. Let's read a little bit here. We're not going to get very far. I want to read through 24, chapter 6, verse 24. We're not going to get far into this, but we'll just pick it up there next week. It'll get you guys thinking of things before we go on. Let's see. Let me get this to the right area and then hit all the magic buttons.
Lost Pam.
Yeah, Pam, she had to go to a doctor's appointment. She was texting me on this platform, which is nice. All right, here we go.
Take heed that you do not do your charitable deeds before men to be seen by them. Otherwise, you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Therefore, when you do a charitable deed, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory from men. Thirdly, I say to you, they have their reward. But when you do a charitable deed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, that your charitable deed may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly. And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets, that they may be seen by men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you pray, go into your room, And when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. And when you pray, do not use vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Therefore, do not be like them, for your Father knows the things you have need of before you ask him. In this manner, therefore, pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. Moreover, when you fast, do not be like the hypocrites with a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces that they may appear to men to be fasting. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but to your Father who is in the secret place. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon.
Okay. All right. So, what kind of stood out to you there? Like, this is all kind of centered around that the Lord's Prayer, but what kind of stood out to you? We got like 4 minutes, so don't say anything too profound.
Well, Francis would like that much. Putting your treasures somewhere.
Oh. Well, that's like my joke. I used to say this a lot, and I don't really do it much anymore, but it was the LCMS's stance in the late 1800s, early 1900s to not have insurance. Like that was evil to not have insurance. That you were showing that you did not think God was going to take care of you, and all those things. That was the stance. Now, the insurance industry was different back then, and that's like all those things. But you can see it's actually a good example of how things adjust and change over the time. We could still have those rules in our mind, but we maybe serve mammon a little bit too much. But that's a good example there.
Might get rid of the Concordia plan.
I'm not on it, and so like that's I'm on the pension. I'm on the pension. But I'm on St. Lucie County medical insurance. Yeah. It's interesting. So everything we talked about before about kind of this this sense of how we live. You can see that continuing to be embodied. Like when you give, don't make a big show of it. You know, like it's this, like, it's not about that thumb, you know, it's about having the freedom. Like when you are free to just give without getting anything or having anyone be worried about it, like it's complete freedom there, right? Like it's the same deal when you pray. Like, and it's doing all this in freedom, and it says, like, the Lord sees it, even when all these other people don't. You're okay. You're okay.
Santa Claus is watching.
Like Santa Claus is watching?
If you get off the plane in Tel Aviv, there is a booth where you can have and try on, if you're Jewish, a phylactery, which they put on your head.
Oh, really?
This is exactly what
Yeah.
the verse is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Again, your point is well made. Orthodox Judaism is very demonstrative, I mean, you have a thing called the Wailing Wall. And it doesn't get more demonstrative. That the manner of praying is a thing called davening. And this projects to everyone. You're speaking with God. So you have straps and things on your head, etc. It is so non-Christian, as it were.
The public prayer. Well, and that's, so we go back to our fun word that we've been using today. Is that tension? There's that tension. You know, I think this should inform us, and all of that. So this is me personally. Don't allow it to have tension. Don't make this into a hard and fast rule. But I'm not real big into, like, the pre-prayer dinner thing. Like out and about and make this big,
Like the proclamation dinner they have at
yeah,
Center?
yeah.
I've gone to that many times.
Yeah, like, but just praying. Well, like just praying before a dinner, like in a restaurant and stuff like that.
Saying table grace before dinner.
Yeah, like that at a restaurant. But that's a tension that I have to hold. And you know what made me not like it is the person that comes up to me and it's like, I really like that you prayed there.
Oh.
Like there's a part of me that is two bad words together. Like I can't say recorded, that does not like to give people what they want. And so like that's definitely informed that. But it's like, well, is it just performative though? You know, like that's, and so like, don't hear what I'm saying. Like, if you do that, don't stop. I'm not saying that's not a general rule. It's just, I struggle in those things too. You know, and that's informed by all of these things and it's attention and all of that stuff.
Jesus was also calling out the current religious groups. That they were the ones who, you know, I donated so much to the temple, and look at me, I fasted for 6 days. I'm in Antioch here, and you know, he's saying, "You see these guys, you know."
It's because it's infectious too. Like in the early Christian church, there was this practice where people would build these pillars, and these guys would get on top of the pillar to show that they were fasting, literally lifting themselves up. And the only way they get food is if someone like throw it up to them and stuff like that. And then we do like, and it's this big show of like fasting and prayer and all that stuff. And these people would waste away because some people wouldn't support them. And that, but it's all kind of talking. And that's why I think there's this holy tension with all of this.
Very unhumble.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. And it's kind of like, be humble enough to where you don't have to get praised to do these things.
If you want to experience, if you go to London to Hyde Park, go to Speaker's Corner. They have everybody getting up on their own little soapbox, and they'll talk about any topic you can imagine. It's quite an experience.
That's fine.
I actually got into an argument with a guy who was talking against Christianity.
Like so we'll kind of talk about more of these things next week. but I kind of want to get it in our brain as we talk about this stuff. And all of this, giving, praying, all this stuff goes right into the Lord's Prayer. And I think that's what you're seeing. And think about this other side to this, that we're talking about these people, the kingdom of God is for the outcasts, the hurting, the ones on the outside. And it's like, you don't have to be good at this, is basically what it's saying. This doesn't have to be the show. This doesn't have to be, all this stuff. And so like that's, you don't have to be good at this. In fact, the prayer that we're taught is this simple little prayer, not this one that just huge pomp and circumstance. So so that's basically where we are today. We'll do chapter 6 again next week as we continue to go through. And I sure hope that this recording worked the whole